Welcome back to the Tailoring Talk Magazine, the show where we talk about stuff we discover as we stumble through this journey called life. It's movie review time, and we accepted the mission to watch every Mission Impossible movie leading up to the release of The Final Reckoning in May 2025. Directed by Chris McQuarrie, this film marked a turning point in the franchise with brilliant storytelling, jaw-dropping practical stunts, razor-sharp tailoring, and the unforgettable debut of Rebecca Ferguson as the mysterious Ilsa Faust. Yes, we are here to review Rogue Nation, break it all down, the plot, the themes, the visual style, and the incredible wardrobe. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to stick with us as we go behind the scenes of one of Ethan Hunt's most stylish and thrilling outings yet. As ever, I'm accompanied by my IMF team members. First off, he's meant to be teaching kids by day, but really he's just playing Halo 5 under his desk. It's John Evans. John, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. Back to work today, so things have gone back to normality. Um, but then the
Oh,
pleasure of coming to record with you guys is like a calming balm to the day.
bless. We haven't started yet. And of course, the tech wizard with a heart of gold who will promptly stick back in the surveillance van when this review is done. It's Alex Hansford. Alex, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Yeah, very good. I'll need you to say whether you accept it or not, Bobby.
Except
Will you
what?
accept? Will you accept the mission or not?
I always accept the mission.
Because that was a
What am I
thing
getting?
that came up this time that didn't come up before. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself, but it's lovely
Yeah.
to be here.
Okay, great. Before we dive in, here's your spoiler warning, which will self-destruct in 5 seconds. If you haven't seen Rogue Nation, hit pause, go see the movie, then come back and join us. Right, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, directed by Christopher McQuarrie. Let's just run through the story first of all. This movie came out in 2015, opens with an exhilarating set piece. I don't know about you guys, but I was grinning from about 12 seconds in. And I just, apart from dismay, possible heart failure at various points in this movie, my face was hurting by the end of it. I just couldn't. I had such a great time from the get-go. But if I just remind you of that opening, I mean, need I remind you of that opening? So Ethan sprints towards a taxiing cargo plane on a mission to intercept nerve gas that's being sold to terrorists. As the team works remotely to open the aircraft's hatch, Ethan jumps onto the plane and clings to its side as it takes off. Benji manages to open the hatch just in time, allowing Ethan to climb in and complete the mission mid-air, establishing the film, well, basically establishing what is to come in the film, because if you thought you'd seen it all in Ghost Protocol, they just topped it all with this. And as ever, as much as possible was all practically done. Opening sequence, guys.
It's very good. I mean, it's great to see Benji in a ghillie suit straight away, making sort of comic relief
Yeah,
comments in the first 2 minutes. Straight away you knew, yes, yeah, here we go, crack on.
sets the tone, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it was very
Yeah,
good.
it's very good.
Now, Alex, you haven't seen this before because we now know that you're a Mission Impossible virgin, for want of a
Yeah.
better word. But you're basically me through the Connery and first half of the Roger Moore era of the Bondathon.
Okay.
How was that opening for you?
Yeah, it was good. It was very good. It one of the things that there's always this balancing act between like the odds are stacked against them and they're just bluffing. They're just like it's just pure luck. And so some of this stuff like does lean very much on the oh my god, like what a bunch of amateurs. But then they pull it off every time. But it's funny because they're aware of this because it's mentioned later in the court hearing, where they literally say just that there's more luck than anything, and so that's and it's like okay they know what they're doing, they know that line that they've got to get right, and this was a great way. It just seemed to get everything right. Actually, this one. So is this reboot number 3? Because it feels like every time, like in this Mission Impossible series, we've like had a couple of reboots already,
I don't think it
yeah,
is, because it's got a continuation of the characters from the last film, hasn't it? I think this one
It's
is the establishing of what we now know as I mean, again, without spoiling it too much for you, Alex. This was the first McHugh film, wasn't it, Bobby?
it
Because
was
yeah,
so Chris McQuarrie was so Tom Cruise. So after wrapping up on Ghost Protocol, Tom Cruise said to McHugh, as he fondly calls him, "You're directing Mission 6."
well, Brad Bird
And
was meant to
McHugh,
direct it first and couldn't do it
well,
because
no,
he was
no.
doing
So
another film, wasn't he?
McQuarrie's,
Tomorrowland or something.
so the actual conversation was, "You're directing Mission 6." McHugh, no fucking way. Tom Cruise, well, who do you suggest should do it? McHugh, Brad Bird should do it again.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise picks up the phone to Brad Bird. They have a conversation out of McHugh's earshot. Tom Cruise laughs and says, "Okay, goodbye, Brad." Turns around to Chris McQuarrie and says, "No, you're directing Mission 6," and walks out the room. And Chris McQuarrie's like,
You
"I
mean Mission
wasn't asked to do
5?
it." Mission 5, sorry. "I
Yeah.
wasn't asked to do it. I don't want to do it. But holy shit, I'm doing it. I'm directing Mission." That's how it happened, out of the
Was
words of out of the
he
mouths of them themselves.
He worked with Tom on Valkyrie, Reacher, Jack Reacher, and The Edge of Tomorrow, hadn't he? So they had a very good working relationship already. And I think if you watch some of the extra features from this film, um, they have a very similar style of writing and presentation, but mostly presentation and framing of the film. So I think they work. That's why the relationships kind of lasted so well. It kind
I
of
think
shows in this
also
film as well.
partly because they know each other, because Chris McQuarrie had been quite heavily involved with Ghost Protocol, so he already knew coming in that Tom Cruise is very, very, very hands-on. I mean, Tom
Mm.
Cruise is there at the end of every take, the
Mm.
setup of scenes. He's involved in every single part of the
He's a producer, isn't he?
production. He
Yeah.
is, but also he is a perfectionist, and his philosophy is that you have to see the filmmaking process and the results from the point of view of the audience in order to make sure that you deliver the best experience for the audience, even down to this opening sequence when they had to do the sound mixing after and the sound effects of the plane and so on. He listened to what they produced first of all, and then turned around and said, "This isn't working because that is not the sound that I heard when I was up there."
Right. Yeah.
And they were like, "Well, who cares? Because no one else knows what it was like because you were the only one that was there." And he said, "It doesn't matter. It has to come. It needs to be what I heard. The audience needs to be there with Ethan in his point of view to be along for the ride."
Yeah.
And
He's a perfectionist.
yeah, and some people would say that it's too much, and some people would use various words to describe him. Me, I've got so much respect for him after delving into the making of this film. So
Yeah, I think,
much.
Bobby, I think a lot of people you see in that making have so much respect for him and his work ethic and what he does. But I don't think there was a feeling of, oh, Tom's taking too much control or anything. It's very much his film, but at the same time, it's the director's film as well. I think they just respect his work ethic. And I mean, Simon Peck says that he's everywhere all the time, doesn't he? In the making, he just
Hmm.
he's everywhere all the time, even when he wasn't filming. Um, he just because Tom loves making films. It's his favorite thing in the world, and you can see
Yeah,
that it comes through in his films.
yeah,
Respect for him.
absolutely. Um, so let's talk about Chris McQuarrie for a second, since we're on that subject. So Chris McQuarrie making his directorial debut in the franchise and later becoming its creative steward brings a surgical precision to Rogue Nation. His storytelling is lean and clear, yet stylized and sophisticated. He drew heavily from the films of Alfred Hitchcock, Brian De Palma, who directed the original Mission, and classic Bond movies, especially in terms of visual suspense and the geographic globetrotting from location to location. Where earlier installments relied more heavily on plot twists and exposition, McQuarrie prioritized visual storytelling and moment-to-moment tension. Every single scene is tightly focused and purposeful. There is very little filler in this movie. His action sequences were choreographed with clarity and geography in mind. You always knew where everybody was, what their objective was, and what was at stake. Whether it's a silent assassination in an opera house or a motorbike duel through the highways of Morocco, there's also a strong undercurrent of humour and character woven into these scenes, especially in Benji's involvement, which never undercuts the tension, but it adds much needed flavour. One of McKee's greatest strengths is restraint. The film never tries to top itself with CGI absurdity. Instead, each set piece builds naturally from the last, and the film's structure carefully ramps up tension and stakes without descending into chaos. And I think this opening scene is a perfect example of that, because the stunt in itself is over the top. Tom Cruise clinging to the side of a plane. It takes, even Carolina was watching it, and when it takes off and you can see how far off the ground he is, she's like, that's not him. He's not up there, is he? And I'm like, that's him. He's up there. He's on a wire, but he's
He
up
did
there.
it 7 times, didn't he?
He did it 8 times. 8 times.
Oh, okay. Because they had to make him wear contact lenses, didn't they? So because the air would have blown his eyeballs.
So he had these special full eye-sized contacts, which makes me cringe. Because obviously, if any debris hit him in the eye at that speed, that's it. He would have been blinded. It was barely 0 degrees up there, so it was freezing cold. He couldn't wear much underneath the suit because otherwise it would have shown up on camera. But there was no in between takes.
Wearing, Bobby, the suit he's wearing for that sequence is a reference, or it's a homage to the suit from the Hitchcock film North by Northwest with
North by Northwest.
Cary Grant.
Yeah,
with Cary Grant. I think it's the same grey suit. It's a little sort of nod to that as well, which is cool.
Yeah, it was deliberate.
I love that sort of thing.
And there's a few more of those in this film as well, but well spotted, very well spotted. It was freezing cold. When the plane touched down, he then basically said, "Go again." So they're sort of preparing cocoa for him and blankets and whatnot, and he's already off down the runway, basically taking off. So they did it 8 times in succession with no breaks. That's how much of a perfectionist he is. But at the end of that sequence, when he gets into the hangar where the nerve gas is, it's just a very, very cute exit for the scene. There's nothing over the top, elaborate, Fast and Furious 5 type, ridiculous stunts off cliffs and stuff like that. It's like straps the whole thing to his back, lets the parachute go, little wink, and off he goes. And then we're into the movie. Absolutely fantastic.
And
Alex,
really, sorry, it was really good lighting the match sequence again in this film.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Alex, you must have been go on, talk us through how, your emotions and how you felt, and then the credits roll. Are you strapping in for this? Let's go.
So I am, but there is one catch, which is so I'm finding that the intro sequence is a bit too much of a spoiler. So I actually looked away for some of that, just because if you have seen it before and then you watch it again, all of a sudden you just go, "Oh, hang on a minute, that's from way later. Oh, that's from." Where
I disagree with you on that one, Alex.
I don't think so.
Because I have seen it, and I kept thinking, they've been really clever with this sequence not to spoil it in any way. Is that really interesting? Did you find, maybe because we've seen it before and we're kind of relaxed about it? I don't know, but that's really interesting.
No, I was thinking about Alex when I was watching that title sequence.
Yeah, I was as well.
With exactly that in mind, and I think they did such a good job. It didn't really give anything away at all. There was no there were no spoilers in there.
Well, did it for Alex though, Bobby?
No, I
Did it
think
for
it
Alex.
wasn't that. It wasn't. It was a spoiler. It was that if I'd have paid attention to the people and like, oh, good, that's Benji wearing smart contacts, for example. All
Yeah.
right,
Hmm.
and that's so and so on a motorcycle, Ilsa on a motorcycle. If I'd have that, it would have distracted a little bit from the enjoyment of the thing. So what I ended up doing was just like going, great, I'm getting ready for this. Not
Yeah.
really focused too much on the thing, but like thoroughly and enjoying the music, which was brilliant throughout actually, and then being able to then go, right, now I'm ready. It was just like it's like the music that you have on the cinema when you get to the end of the end of the trailers, and it's like, you know, da, 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 and it's like
Yeah.
Pearl and Dean, isn't it?
Hmm.
And it's like, great, you know, you'll get ready. This is the main event. And so I saw it that way. But yeah, no, it was brilliant, and it's just there's really very little to fault this particular one. Like it's just the stakes are high, the character work is great, cinematography is great, the music is great, and of course the action is absolutely stellar.
Yeah.
And the thing is, what was funny was that there are other action sequences in other Mission Impossibles which were like, oh come on, that's just unbelievable. But throughout this, I didn't think that, despite the fact that there was a whole underwater scene which was like technically absurd. But I wasn't thinking, oh my god, this won't happen. Instead I was thinking, well, how's he going to survive this one? And how is it that he's just like accepted that he's going to hold his breath for over 3 minutes when, you know, Rebecca Ferguson can't do it? That was it. So anyway,
Six.
so I loved
In the
it.
end. Bobby, go on, turn the
6
fact.
minutes.
6 in the end, and
Yeah.
Rebecca Ferguson, they actually competed when they were doing the training for that sequence, and she could do the 6 minutes as well by the end of it.
He is
But let's keep
Only
moving through the
beaten.
story. Let's
Only
keep
beaten
moving
by
through the
Kate Winslet in
story.
Avatar. She did 7 minutes.
We'll, yeah,
Kate
I know. We'll get
Winslet,
on
very
to that.
good.
Let's keep moving through the story. So I'm using the story as kind of a timeline for this review. We'll keep spinning off it into stunts, whatever, but then we'll keep coming back to the story. Meanwhile, Hunt is on the trail of a mysterious Oh no, hang on. Before that, back in Washington, CIA Director Alan Hunley, played by the awesome Alec Baldwin, is pushing to disband the IMF, citing its reckless methods and lack of oversight. He believes their missions are too dangerous and often unverified. William Brandt, Jeremy Renner returning, now serving as a liaison to the IMF, argues in defense of the team, but the Senate sides with Hunley. The IMF is officially shut down and folded into the CIA, leaving Hunt isolated and alone. Firstly, I loved the introduction of Alec Baldwin. I kind of forgot that he was in this, but then I haven't seen the film for probably 7 or 8 years. But I just absolutely loved the interplay between him and Jeremy Renner. Jeremy Renner does that sort of understated kind of dry humor so well. And Alec Baldwin, we know from his very famous Glengarry Glen Ross speech, he can deliver dialogue with the best of them. But you know, I just love the fact that, you know, every argument he's making with the Senate, Brandt is just interjecting with, you know, yeah,
Can neither
and we
confirm
saved
nor
the
deny.
yeah, save the Western Hemisphere, you
Yeah.
know, etc., etc. Very entertaining. Absolutely loved it. And again, I just couldn't wipe the smile off my face for the whole thing.
It was quite nice them referencing the other films as well, with the missile clipping the buildings, and
Yeah.
the film really sort of did tie together those other plot points really well.
Yeah, and
Just
I
made
think
it feel
Alex,
part
you
of a bigger
mentioned
thing.
you could. This isn't a reboot, Alex. I think you can really see this as a genuine sequel to to Ghost Protocol. I mean, the link at the end of Ghost Protocol is quite tenuous because it wasn't intended. That was meant by Brad Bird. So the reference to the syndicate at the end of Ghost Protocol was an Easter egg placed by Brad Bird as a nod to the original series. Because as I understand it, John, the Syndicate in the original series wasn't such a big, shadowy, Spectre-like
No,
organization. They were more
they were a
like the
bit like
mafia,
Spectre.
like a local
They were,
mafia or something.
they're not. No, you're right. They were just a group. They weren't world-reaching, but they were a group that were a foil to the IMF more than anything else.
Yeah. So let's talk about Alec Baldwin for a second, because this is the first time we see him, and I can't say certain things because Alex hasn't seen the next one either.
No.
Damn it. Alan Hunley, played by Alec Baldwin, initially positioned as an antagonist, CIA Director Alan Hunley is the embodiment of institutional skepticism. He wants to shut the IMF down, viewing its operatives as reckless cowboys who cause more chaos than they prevent. However, throughout the film, he undergoes a key transformation. He's presented with undeniable evidence of the IMF's necessity, not through argument, but through action. He sees firsthand the depth of Hunt's sacrifice, the integrity of his team, and the legitimacy of the threats they face. By the end of the film, he has gone from critic to advocate, vouching for the IMF's reinstatement and even taking over as its new head. His arc reflects one of the film's core themes, the need for institutions to adapt when they are confronted with the truth. And his character arc is just one example of why, spoiler alert, I love this movie so much, because there is so much going underneath the surface of this film. It's not just a balls out action set piece film with the story woven around it, even though that's actually the way that it came to be.
Bobby,
Still,
Bobby. Speaking
yeah.
of that, do you think, because obviously you and I both know that when production started, the script still hadn't been written completely. Do
Mm-hmm.
you think they initially intended Hunley to be always an antagonist, and the way the plot changed towards the end, that kind of switcheroo with his sympathetic air, was a kind of an update or a rewrite towards the end of the film? I think they hadn't intended him to be on the side of the IMF, and it was kind of cleverly explained with his, "Oh yeah, we were just hiding that behind this, hiding it from the Senate because it was a secret mission," sort of thing. I think either way it doesn't matter, but I think it's quite interesting that how you can see the film evolve over time through the plot. I think it's really clever.
Yeah, because early on, and as a fan of the original show, John,
Yeah.
you'll be interested to know that at one point, what was Martin Landau's character's name in the original series? The guy who was like the
Oh.
master of disguises.
Yeah, he was the one with
They,
the I can't remember now. But is it
it was
Bolero
originally,
or Balero? I can look it up, but
um,
because I
oh
was
no, no,
watching
no,
them
sorry,
recently.
they weren't going to bring that character. They were basically going to cast Martin Landau as the director.
Oh, really?
So they were,
That would be
yeah, they
cool.
were looking to bring him in for that, and then it didn't work out for whatever reason. Um, I think the other thing as well is Christopher McQuarrie, in an interview I was listening to, he was asked about all the possibilities that had almost happened that would have
Rolling
paid
hand.
a lot of fan service to fans of
Mm.
the original series. And McHugh says the problem is it's very easy to pay fan service. JJ did it with Star Trek 2009 when he
Yeah.
brought Leonard Nimoy back as Spock, etc., etc. But he said the problem with fan service is that you then only appeal to a very narrow spectrum of the audience, and everybody else has to try and figure it out. And you've got a
He still
very
did that
narrow
though.
set of
He still
you
did
get
that in the film.
a narrow set of people that get it, right?
Yeah.
Um, so his attitude in the end to fan service was basically fuck fan service, his words, not mine. And he's like, I don't care about fan service because I need to focus on making a great movie. So if there's a way to put it in that doesn't detract from what we're doing, from the journey that we're taking, from
Mm.
the roller coaster ride that we're on, then great, all for it. And obviously they have put a few Easter eggs in
Yeah,
and
all right,
around
yeah.
this movie, but there's nothing there that jolts you out of the
Mm.
action, that would stop the audience turning around, talking to each other, ignoring the film that's on screen to say, "Oh my God, yeah, like he was the original blah 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 back in the original
Yeah,
back in the
Bobby,
day,
there was
etc.
no
etc."
like nudge, nudge, winking at the camera type fan service, but there were some cool little things like, the number of the underwater terminal they had to get to access number 108, which is the total of the infamous number sequence from Lost. Because obviously that's a nod to J.J. Abrams. There's an Aston Martin parked in the background that's a Bond nod. But these are things that don't detract from the film, and you probably hardly would spot at all. But as you say, they're kind of nice little fun things that are kind
Yeah, I
of
mean, when
just
he calls
there
in,
and gone.
he uses the
Echo,
same
yeah,
call sign, yeah, that
yeah.
he used in the first mission film,
Echo 11, wasn't it,
etc.
something? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like really cute little things like that, but very subtle.
yeah.
So back to Ethan. Meanwhile, Hunt is on the trail of a mysterious organization known as the Syndicate, a rogue international network comprised of former intelligence operatives believed to be dead. After receiving intel at a safe house in London, Hunt is captured by the Syndicate. Now let's interject again, because that record shop doesn't exist in London's Lower Regent Street or whatever. It was
No,
in just off Regent
that's,
Street. The archways there. They built that, but it
that's
was an homage to the original
Tower.
series. Huh?
It
It
looked
was
like
meant to
Tower
be.
Records to me in Piccadilly.
Yeah, it was
No,
meant to
it
be
wasn't.
based off of Tower Records, but it
It was,
wasn't
I think it
Tower
was based
Records.
around it. You're right, it wasn't it,
Yeah.
but it looked like it to me.
So that's where the circular like arches came from,
Yeah,
but it was on set, wasn't it? It wasn't an
yeah.
actual.
It was all on
Thing.
set. Yeah, it wasn't there.
Yeah,
So
it
basically,
doesn't
the
exist where it is.
architecture of the store that they built on set was meant to reflect what you saw in the outside shot. So again,
Mm.
attention to detail, because you see so many films and TV shows, and especially when they're set in London, where the external shot, they move inside and you're like, that's a completely different location. So they did such a great job with that. But apparently that was an homage to the original TV show, because I think in the first episodes I heard the lead actor or
The
guy
record,
got his mission on a
yeah,
records. Yeah,
on a vinyl record, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It just
yeah.
didn't have holograms
Um,
coming out of it. But what
yeah.
an awesome twist in that sequence, though, in that scene. Like,
Yeah,
hmm
Becca and I were watching it, and she gasped when she realised, because I think she remembered the film better than I did. This one, when she realised it was a betrayal, she gasped, and it was a lovely scene of her going, "No, but no, no!" Like, it was brilliant. So cleverly done.
Yeah.
The
Your
voice was
mission, if you
different, wasn't
choose to,
it?
yeah, your mission, if you
Yeah,
choose to accept it, is to blah blah blah. But you won't
yeah,
need to, because we are the syndicate.
yeah.
And then the voice
Oh,
changed, and it
getting
was like, oh
goosebumps.
shit. And then he looks out the
Hmm.
glass door, Alex, and
yeah.
that poor girl,
Get
who
shot.
you must have been having kittens about with the gun to her head because she's pretty blonde, and we all know you're partial to a pretty blonde. Amy doesn't listen to this, it's fine. Um, uh, anyway, sorry, being serious for a second though, but it was a jaw-dropping, oh my
Mm.
God moment, because we didn't really get to know that character, but she seemed nice enough,
Mm.
and she
They
gets a
they
bullet straight through her head,
they
and then
shot
he gets gassed
Hermione.
and captured.
Sure. She's not Hermione. She's
I
the
mean,
um
her
the, the
no, she's
French.
called Record Shop Girl, but she was played by
Oh, wasn't
Hermione
she?
Caulfield. So it's like you shot
Oh,
Hermione.
I was going to
Anyway,
say, was it the actress from the Harry Potter films who was
no,
married to one of the Weasleys? No?
no, it wasn't. No,
She reminded
not
me
Oh,
of
her.
one of
okay, fine.
The French school, visiting French school. The girl from the French school in that
Yeah,
Yeah,
scene.
yeah, but
yeah,
no,
yeah.
Yeah.
she's not from that. She's
No.
she's
Oh, okay.
had lots of small roles in different bits, but this was a great role to have actually.
Yeah.
So
So
anyway, carry on because it was awesome.
he's taken to an underground torture facility run by Janik Vinter, also known as the Bone Doctor. Just as Hunt's fate seems sealed, he's rescued by a double agent, Ilsa Faust. We don't know she's a double agent
Great
at this
name.
point. Played by Rebecca Ferguson, a
Oh, she's
disavowed
so
MI6
beautiful in this film.
operative
Isn't she
working
good?
within the syndicate. Her motives are unclear, but she allows Hunt to escape. Now, Rebecca Ferguson,
Oh, she's so beautiful.
originally a big name actress, was down for this role, and they decided to go in a different direction. Now, Rebecca Ferguson's previous claim to fame was in Hercules, the Rock version I think, was it Hercules that he do Hercules?
Dwayne, yeah, I
One
think he
of
did,
these
didn't he?
strong Conan, or was it Conan the
Conan.
Barbarian?
I can't remember.
It was Conan. Yeah.
Yeah,
So anyway,
she was in
so
Hercules.
she was in Hercules. Okay, so maybe it
Yeah,
was Hercules then.
yeah.
Whatever film The Rock did, basically, that was Hercules or Conan, one of those things. And this
No, it
really
was
was her
Hercules.
breakout role.
Yeah.
This really was her breakout role. So she was basically flown to set. She was working on something over here in England, was rushed to Luton Airport, flew out to meet Tom
Classy.
Cruise. They spent a few hours together, and then she was, flown back to Luton to continue working on what she was working on.
She wasn't the first
But
choice,
when
though, was she, Bobby?
no, she wasn't. But when she learned what they wanted to do with the character, she was obviously down for it. And I think when Cruise and McQuarrie spent time with her, they realised that they found their anti-Bond girl, basically. And I think from the get-go they set the tone right with her. And the other thing I love with her is that they were consistent. She didn't start off like some of our strongest, most beloved Bond girls, where they start off really, really strong, but by the end of the film, it's, oh, James, James, help me,
Bobby.
James.
McHugh did not want.
Right?
He did not want a love story or a romantic story. He wanted to show her as being capable and independent. They didn't want any sort of love interest in this film, and I think that's a really, really good choice. I'm going to have to say this here. I think this film was better than Bond, and that's saying quite a
So
lot.
I said this
Do
to
you know what I mean?
Carolina over dinner. I said,
This film's better than
potentially,
Bond.
I can't think of a single Bond film that I think is better than this film.
Yeah. Which is,
So
wow.
And that's
I'd
controversial.
say
I
on
know,
par.
Sorry,
I
Bond
know how
fans. Really
controversial that
sorry.
is.
Yeah.
And,
I'd say on
anyone,
par.
yeah, but on par with what though, Alex?
I would say Spectre or No Time to Die. But
I
those
preferred
are
this
the
film
only
to No
two.
Time
They're
to
the
Die.
only two that compete with that.
Mm.
Although what I will say is that my wife watched this and then went, "Ha! That's what happens when you don't have the one of the leads sleep with the spy." And I was just
Yeah.
like, "Whoa, where did that come from?" Haven't told her about my blonde obsession yet.
Well, let's think about it from a female audience perspective for a second, right? Because
Yes,
like my wife absolutely loved this. I'm sure Becca did, and I'm
She
sure
did,
Amy
yeah.
did as well, right? Because
absolutely.
there was none of the objectification, and the character was never weakened at any point. She was always and in fact, actually, if anyone did any rescuing, it was her in the
Yeah.
underwater sequence in Morocco, which we'll talk
Yeah.
about shortly. Um,
There was one
she
sequence,
was
Bobby,
just
one sequence where I thought she acted better than any Bond girl I've ever seen. And that was just after she'd outpaced Ethan on the motorbike and he's tumbled around in the dirt and he's lying on the ground. And she did it on purpose so he'd jump off as a mercy jump. And she's back on her bike and she has the visor of her helmet open and she looks back over her shoulder at Tom and she goes from her expression of I'm really sorry I had to do that and I'm off now. The acting in that, like you could see it just in her eye and nothing else before she puts the visor down. Class, really, really good acting, and yes, it's a popcorn film. This, it's not it's not a critical darling of the critics. It is a fun film, but just the confidence and the swagger of this film,
Yeah,
unbelievable. It's just
yeah,
a modest swagger. It's not showing off. It's just doing everything perfectly. I think I can guess what our
yeah,
scores are going to be for this film.
I think she was
yeah,
empowered. Yeah, she was empowered as well. I think that's
Yeah.
one of the things. I think, yeah, she was an empowered actress who
Mm.
had a lot in, and what was great was they didn't shy from her. They didn't shy from her sexuality,
No, her
and like
femininity was
that.
was
They
played
it was
perfectly.
just
Yeah.
perfectly set. It was like, and that was good. It was there wasn't objectification, but it was sort of just felt very good.
I
I
love
think actually that respect, it was ahead of its time almost.
I love the touch where she takes her high heels off when she's on the
Yeah,
roof of the Venetian,
that's right.
Viennese theatre, because she couldn't run in her heels. Such a clever little scene that she takes them off before she runs across. Love it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
shoes, shoes.
Yeah,
the shoes are a compliment because they come up earlier, don't they, as well?
yeah.
And it's just, but what's nice is that what seems like a throwaway reference then becomes like a compliment almost, and
Yeah.
it's just not. I think a lot of things that are played in this film are like they you get payoff at the end as well, and you get the same with Renner's sort of answers, and you get the same thing with Benji. It's very much sort of what feels like it's throwaway. Later on, you kind of go, nice, yeah.
It's so tightly written. It's so clever.
Yeah. Hunt goes off the grid, determined to expose the syndicate. He sends intel to Brant and Benji, who is now working a desk job at the CIA, playing Halo 5 under Hunley's watch. Despite the risks, Benji accepts an invitation to Vienna under the guise of attending an opera, only to find Ethan waiting for him. They've identified a possible syndicate target, the Austrian Chancellor, who's attending a performance of Turandot at the Vienna State Opera, and I'm sorry any opera fans if I have butchered the pronunciation of that. In one of the film's most masterfully choreographed sequences, multiple assassins converge at the opera house, each with different methods and motives. Hunt and Benji work frantically to stop the hit, with Faust reappearing as one of the would-be assassins. Despite saving the Chancellor, he dies in a car explosion outside the opera, indicating the syndicate's reach and its ruthlessness. And again, what a sequence, really. And this was very, very Hitchcockian. I read somewhere that it has echoes of The Man
Quantum
Who
Solace
Knew Too Much
as well. Wasn't there an opera scene in Quantum Solace as well, like this?
Yeah, there was, but it just don't talk about that and dirty.
Sorry.
Ugh.
Never mentioned question of sport. Sorry.
No.
They timed it perfectly as well. This is the thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't. So sometimes things like that were placed in. They were placed in Bond as a site or a
dressing.
feeling of. Yeah, exactly. As dressing. Yeah. That's exactly it. Whereas what they did is they incorporated it into the plot. They made it really integral, and that's what made it really punch, because so much of it meant things. So it was really good. Yeah, we need to talk about soundtrack later, but we'll come on.
We will.
That was really clever.
So, some of my notes on the Opera House sequence, it is pure Hitchcock, arguably the film's most artistically composed scene. This segment at the Vienna State Opera drips in tension and cross-cutting mastery. It echoes The Man Who Knew Too Much in tone, using a live performance as a ticking clock. Because I think in The Man Who Knew Too Much, it was the same thing, basically. The assassination, the hit would happen when the singer hit a certain or reached a coda. The visual language shifts here, the long lenses, the slow tracking, minimal dialogue. It's all about body language, positioning and anticipation. This is spy thriller filmmaking at its very best, is what I wrote.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that. That was very good.
Yeah.
And again,
I also love
the framing. Excellent. The framing is excellent. This sequence.
Yeah. Join the IMF. Travel the world. Was it behind a screen in a closet? Sitting in a closet behind a screen.
Which grated me a little bit because he's British and he wouldn't say closet, he'd say cupboard. But he's got to cater to the American audience, I guess, isn't he? And American writers. Right. But yeah.
Well, no, I mean, to be fair, he spent a bit of time in America, and you tend to pick up some of those. Otherwise, the Americans don't understand you. I was at a party the other evening over Easter weekend, and I asked someone to pass the water, and there were a couple of Americans, and they were like, "Sorry, what?" And I said, "Sorry, could you pass the water?" And they're like, "Oh, the water, yeah." Anyway, sorry. two
Yeah.
great nations separated by a common language. We have to interject. I want to go back to I really desperately want to keep this flowing, but we have to talk about that dress.
The yellow
Yeah, go on.
silk.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
And also practical. You could tell that the character had chosen it because it was elegant, but also adjustable and allows her to move as an assassin. It's really clever. Again,
Yep.
when she
Her
put her leg up
wardrobe.
on the side of that little booth she was in to rest the gun on, I shuddered because again, she's doing it because it's practical for the scene, but it just, her femininity came through. It was just so clever.
Yeah.
Without
So
it being gratuitous.
my notes on the dress, and I need to give some credit here to my wife Carolina, because this is probably the dress that she remembers the most out of any movie that she's ever seen in her entire life. This is one of the most iconic looks in the entire series. The cut, strapless floor length with a high slit for mobility, which she uses to devastating effect during the fight. The deep golden yellow is loaded with symbolism, luxury, danger, allure, contrasts sharply with the shadows and darkness of the opera house, making her instantly stand out. The silhouette of this dress is fluid and sensual, yet it's never gratuitous. It's evening wear that works like armor. You could imagine a Bond girl wearing it. Think Paloma in No Time to Die. It has agency. She chooses the look and she weaponizes it. So there we go.
It's when she walks up the steps in the theatre and it drops and you think, oh, that could trip her up, but it's not. It's kind of chaos and elegance, but in utter control as it walks up and it sort of hugs the back of her feet. Oh, I mean, we're getting quite geeky about this, but I was very impressed. And in fact, there's other clothes which you're going to talk about later on that was very impressive too in this film.
I mean, come on, if anyone is listening to this or watching this on the YouTube channel, right, then that someone's got to be thinking, about bloody time a channel called Tailoring Talk actually starts talking about some bloody clothes.
Yeah.
And we're not going to disappoint, boys and girls. I promise you, there is a lot more to come. Faust disappears again. Hunt follows her to Morocco, where she reveals that the syndicate's operations are controlled through a secure digital ledger housed in an underwater data facility, unhackable from the outside. Hunt, Benji, and Faust plan a heist to retrieve the data. In a tense underwater sequence, Hunt dives into a submerged chamber, manually switching a security card while holding his breath. He blacks out, but Ilsa rescues him.
It's a good sequence.
Alex, again, what was going on in the Hansford household watching this for the first time ever?
Well, we were engrossed. We were engrossed in it, really. So, yeah, no, we really enjoyed it. Yeah, I mean, again, the concept is pretty preposterous, but you're not thinking about that. You're just thinking about, oh God, how's it going to work? And I think this is where the pairing of Ilsa and Hunt together really works, because I think it kind of just lightens things at the right times and adds gravitas when it's needed. And yeah, it was just and it was a case of you knew he was going to be rescued, but you were thinking to yourself, well, where? How's that going to happen? And then obviously the moment comes, and you're just like, oh yeah, nice. And the payoff was right, and the timing was great. Yeah, it's of all the things that they didn't mention was those stupid arms that were going round on that thing. I thought that was quite it's just surprising that they never mentioned it.
The only other thing that confused me about that scene was, and I know Benji had the combination decoder mechanism, which is really cool, which we'll talk about in your gadgets later on, probably, Alex. But there were certain aspects of how they managed to get in that eluded me, like the
Yeah.
the security at the entrance, and then the keypad and the fingerprint scanner. I don't know how they got those details. It seemed to be a little bit wavy-handy about that. I don't know if
It
you
was
could
a bit
clarify.
glossed over. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
definitely a bit glossed over, but I think that was because that wasn't the cool bit
focus.
in a
Yeah,
way, and so they were just like, let's not focus on it. The thing you want to know is Benji's going to do his walk, and that walk is either going to result in him being dead or not dead,
yeah.
and that's the only thing you need to focus on. And it was good. Like that bit was really
Mm.
nicely done. So yeah, no, I loved it. I thought it was really good. I mean, I love Morocco as a country.
Mm.
Visually, it's just stunning, and the Casablanca set and stuff was
I mean,
lovely.
have you been to Casablanca, Alex?
No, so I've been to Morocco once, and
Yeah.
I just left it wanting to go back, and I've never gone
I mean,
back
I
yet. So
loved Marrakesh. Casablanca was not
yes,
particularly nice when I saw a bloke selling his own blood
right,
from a Coke bottle on the side street. So
oh
I
blimey,
can see why they used a location on the outskirts of Casablanca, that lovely sort of house where she's swimming in a pool. But
yeah.
it's interesting because
Marrakesh
I think,
is nice.
yeah, Marrakesh is lovely. But it's interesting how many different locations they have in this film. You know, they really have
Mm, mm,
pushed the boat out on locations as well. Loved it.
yeah,
Interestingly, though this took place in Morocco, the actual site itself, the external shots were a disused or decommissioned nuclear station just outside of Portsmouth, and then
oh,
with a little bit of CGI help, the the circular thing that the water flows into,
Oh, the
oh,
sinkhole
that
thing.
was that was in Derbyshire. It was some sort of reservoir or something up in Derbyshire.
Oh, do you know, I think I've been to
They
it actually.
they flew a drone overhead to get the shots of it, and then basically used some CG trickery to overlay it
nice,
with
yeah.
the outdoor shots of the power station, and then the water tank itself was built on a soundstage in Pinewood. So there we go. Um,
Mm.
Cruise does do. We talked about it earlier. 6 minute breath hold for the underwater chamber dive. Again, no stunt double, no CGI bubbles. That's all real. The scene is a masterclass in escalating tension through
Mm.
confined space, time constraints, and disorientation. The editing by Paul Hirsch keeps the pacing razor sharp without losing visual clarity. He had also worked on Star Wars. He's a ILM alumni, and there's a very interesting interview with him if you ever find it, where he talks about how in Star Wars, when you see the Millennium Falcon hurtling towards you at 150 miles an hour, and then the camera, sorry, and then it kind of sort of swoops past you and
Mm.
around you. What's actually happening there is you've got the Millennium Falcon, which is all of 12, 14 inches long, on a stick, suspended in air, and the camera is basically put on a rig, and the camera moves to and around the Falcon, giving that sort of visual
That motion control.
sort of effect of motion control. Exactly. And so what happened in this sequence is a lot of those shots were Hunt and later Ilsa were actually spinning around in the water static in one place,
Yeah.
and they had the camera on a rig moving around them to create that sort of sense of reverse
Swirl. Yeah.
motion, swirl, etc., which is fascinating and absolutely bloody amazing, really. It's just, is when you get into filmmaking like this, it makes me want to go back and watch the documentary about the making of the original Star Wars.
Mm.
Just how much creativity, ingenuity, it takes to build to make films like this. I just and we found this out through watching 50, 60 years of Bond movies as well. I mean, the solutions they would have to come up with on the fly to create a lot of those effects, especially in the early days where it was all
Mm.
mostly practical. It was all practical. It just, yeah, it really. Can you tell from my energy today? You know what the rating's going to be for this, don't you? Um, so yeah, so there's a little bit of a let up because Ilsa saves Ethan. Originally, there was meant to be a kiss. So it was scripted as she kisses him when she brings him back to life. But they took that out because they, again, didn't want to go too much down the romantic angle. Although it's clear that they are developing feelings for each other, it's, you know, there is still a professional
Yeah.
respect there. And I think empathy for each other because they're in the same situation. They're both agents that have been burnt and discarded by their respective organisations, but they're still trying to do the right thing. So Vinter and the syndicate operatives ambushed the team, and I'm laughing here because I know the story behind this. Taking the drive and leaving Hunt and Benji in the desert,
Yeah.
Ilsa slips away again. Now this is the famous motorbike sequence. So Ilsa, they have that moment, and then Ilsa betrays him.
Yeah.
Ethan's malfunctioning because he's just come back from the dead and he's not working.
He's been
He keeps
resuscitated.
glitching, right?
Yeah.
Ilsa escapes, jumps over a car and lands smack in the middle of a biker gang. At this point in the development process, guys, they didn't know what she'd stolen.
No.
So,
Okay,
so
that's interesting.
McHugh knows the sequence that he wants, which is a motorbike chase. And originally it was meant to be Ethan chasing Sean Harris's character. And then they storyboarded it, they worked it all out. McQuarrie sat back, rubbed his chin and said, guys, this is fucking boring. This is boring. This is not going to work. And then the light bulb moment came that he needed to be chasing her, and so did everybody else. Anyway, so she's like, well, what have I stolen? He's like, I don't know. It's a MacGuffin. It's exactly like the rabbit's fur, the knock list in previous movies, right? They don't know what it is. So, but he said, you know, like, pretend it's the size of a cigarette lighter, and we'll figure it out later. But that's what you've stolen. And then one of the crew members had a metal cigarette lighter, and he threw it at her. She caught it, and that is what she's holding in her hand for the rest of that sequence. But yeah, Cruise did all of his own stunt driving in that that BMW M3. I know.
Hold on, back up. So those impossibly precise turns and spins down that narrow, that was all Ethan. I mean, all Tom Cruise.
That was all Tom Cruise. All Tom Cruise.
Holy Jesus.
He did weeks and weeks of training on the Top Gear track. They built for where the car spins in the alleyway.
Yeah, the cones and things.
The crew. Yeah, so there were people like the Moroccan locals were all there. They were all watching this happening from their doorways and their windows. So the set crew basically would have built, and Alex, your father-in-law, would probably really appreciate this. He might even know some of the people that were involved. But they built the walls out with wooden, that kind of styrofoam stuff, like the same as they did in the Matrix movies as well. It's all kind of that foamy type kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So when the car kind of span around, it would knock bits out, but it wouldn't actually damage the buildings. But yes, John, that was all Tom Cruise.
Very good sequence. Very good sequence. I love
Simon
Pegg
Pegg in the car with him, by the way.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love his screaming and just like his wailing as he goes down the stairs and around the corridors. It's a brilliant sequence. It's really good.
They found a way to just inject a little bit of tension relief throughout that sequence, having them banging their heads up and down as McQuarrie describes, like a couple of Muppets. And then Ethan, if you watch it back, you can hear the horn going because his head's hitting the horn on the steering wheel. But yeah, absolutely. And then the motorbike stuff, don't even get me started on that. It was amazing. So they basically worked it out and planned it really carefully because everybody had to be
the camera work is unbelievable
at the same time. Yeah. They took out some of the traffic and put it back in with CGI.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So it kind of, because otherwise it would have just been too. I mean, you literally split. I mean, I ride two wheels as well, and it takes a split second, and that's it. Your life's over. So yeah, and they were having enough problems behind the scenes as it was with getting permission to do things and insurance and all other sorts of stuff. Um, so the motorbike chase, this high speed sequence is a love letter to John Woo style bike chases, see Mission Impossible 2, but with real stakes and speed. The camera sticks close to Tom Cruise, who performs every part of the chase himself, bringing a physicality to the sequence that feels raw and immediate. I mean, that's the thing, right? You got this with Daniel Craig in parts of his Bond films because he insisted on doing as much as he could by himself within reason. But let's face it, Daniel Craig is no Tom Cruise. I mean, Tom Cruise is... What hasn't he done yet? Gone into space, I think.
Yeah.
The guy's
Wait and
machine.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The editing is tight.
Furious, it's good enough for Tom, eh?
The editing is tight but not frantic. There's an intentional rhythm that lets you enjoy the choreography of every single turn, slide, and crash. And Alex, what about the end of that chase when Ilsa's standing in the middle of the road when she's got ahead of him, causes him to crash, and then just walks off, as John was describing earlier? Flipping heck.
Oh, I mean, it was great, wasn't it? It was just a classic way of working. But again, it's just every part of that particular shot was great. Like she's standing there, unmoving, and then just completely throws him.
She knows
and
him.
then you're just just looking at you're just watching it, going, "Oh man, what are you doing? She totally played you." But at the same time, there's not enough time to appreciate how good she looks in the thing, all of that, because it's just so much is happening, and it's just brilliant. I really can't fault it.
Let's take a second whilst we're talking about her to again sort of just expand on Ilsa. Arguably the franchise's most significant new character since its inception. And her performance is absolutely mesmerizing. She balances skill, sensuality, intellect, and pain. She's a complex mirror of Ethan Hunt. She is too disavowed, but unlike Ethan, her survival depends on continually navigating manipulation and betrayal, primarily from MI6, as we see in the scene that's just about to come up. She's always one step away from danger, trapped in a web of conflicting loyalties, to Lane as part of her cover, to MI6 as part of her duty, and to herself as a woman trying to reclaim her identity and her place in the world. Her physical capabilities match Ethan's. She saves him multiple times, but it's her internal conflict that makes her truly compelling. She walks the line between hero and anti-hero throughout the film, constantly pulling away before Hunt can fully trust her. And yet, time after time, she chooses the right path despite the personal cost. What's really groundbreaking is that she's not a love interest. There is chemistry, but their relationship is founded on mutual respect and moral alignment, not flirtation. She's not there to motivate Hunt. She's his equal, his counterbalance, and at times, she even acts as his moral compass.
I
I
felt a bit sorry
think...
for Tom and Ethan Hunt in these films. He's lonely, isn't he? He's on
Why?
his own. Well,
Yeah.
he's such a catch, but his focus is not a partner. His focus is saving the world the whole time, and he strikes me as kind of a tragic character in some respects in these films.
But it's the decision that he has to make, John.
Yeah,
From
I know.
every accepting the mission.
Yeah,
Even at the point where she does say to him, later in, the third choice that she has is go away
come away
with
with me.
that he has is
Yeah,
to go away with her, right?
yeah.
And come on, you were all thinking if it was you would, right?
In a flash,
What choice?
Anyway, before we go down that line
solve
of
the
film,
world.
back in London, so this is where both of them get burned. Back in London, Brandt warns Hunley of Hunt's continued rogue actions, and Hunley issues a kill order. Meanwhile, Faust returns to London to meet her handler, MI6 director Atlee, what a creep, who orders her to eliminate Hunt. However, she remains torn between her loyalties and sense of morality. Meanwhile, Hunt finally confronts the syndicate's leader, Solomon Lane, played by Sean Harris, a former MI6 agent disavowed and presumed dead. Lane is a cold, cerebral figure, a stark contrast to previous villains in the series, with a long game of destabilizing the world order through terror and manipulation. So yeah, I really, really felt for both of them here that, you know, there's so much that they've given their entire lives over to saving the rest of us, but they're basically just spat on, and yet, despite that, they still continue to push through and do the right thing. Right, Alex?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's. I think that double play, that whole double play that Ilsa has, and then when she goes back to, I mean, to see Atlee and the whole. I think that was expertly done. I can't fault that.
Her eyes when she realised that she was trapped. Oh.
Yeah, totally. And I don't have a lot to say about Atlee as a character, or even
Simon
necessarily
McBurney, the actor, isn't it?
Yeah,
He was the bad guy in the Golden Compass series as well, wasn't he? The BBC version of it.
Yeah, that's right.
He plays a good villain, that actor, Simon McBurney, though, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think with the name Atlee, it feels like a villain anyway.
Yeah.
So I think because it's of Clement Atlee, isn't it? But I just feel like, yeah, I don't think his character was meant to have a particular impact. I think it was more just his actions went on to Ilsa's, and I think that was always his place. Like, you know, it was where the whole Prime Minister thing happening later on. Like, you had no real care for him at all. It was more just that he was a vehicle for things that were happening. But yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, it's just expertly done. Like, I just really liked that part of the storyline. Wasn't really expected. So it was really well done.
I think also this is the bit where we really see the friendship that's developed between Ethan and Benji and the love that they have for each other. I mean, that's really the real love story, is Benji and Ethan, because Benji is also captured at the same time because what's his face wants that disc, because the disc is basically the key codes which reveal it allows him to access all the cash, basically.
2.4 billion.
Can you please say that in the voice, John?
$2.4 billion. It's the wrong voice, but it's the voice I used.
Go with that.
But they basically strap a bomb to Benji, and if Ethan doesn't give up the key codes, then they're going to blow Benji to bits. But Ethan, being Ethan, because we see a little cutscene of Luther basically putting a drill through the USB-C stick, and we're like, USB-A stick, rather. It wasn't USB-C then.
Very good.
And
Nice.
And
Well
I
done.
don't know about you guys,
Well
Alex.
done.
Were you sort of cringing at that, thinking, what are they doing? When we know
just
that
thought
that's the only live copy.
I didn't think. Yeah, I did think that a little bit, but then I started going down the route of, like, I'm not sure in the chip would actually be that at that particular place. So it's almost a bit knowing.
Is that what you thought?
It's a little. I was thinking to myself, I was like, look, do you know what? A lot of that is filler. I haven't got my memory with me at the moment.
I don't think when they assemble a USB-A stick in the factory that they put the chip in
Placement of
that
the memory
point.
A lot of
So
it
in
is
actual
just
fact, you
to
probably
the
could
drill.
still read the data off it.
Poor
Sorry.
Alex. We're giving you a lot of grief there. My first thought was they're protecting the information. They're making sure no one can get to it. That was my first thought.
Yeah,
But it's like, where is the
I knew too much.
information? But Ethan has memorized it, so they can't kill Ethan, because if they
So
kill
clever.
Ethan, they destroy the data, and that's how he saves
very well done.
Benji.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And the
liked it.
terror on Simon. Yeah, I thought Simon Pegg
Oh,
acted this really well
yeah, he did.
because
His
he had
eyes.
to. He
Yeah,
had to repeat, and then he's like, "Was it? But that's not him talking. That's me
That's
now.
me
Yeah."
now. It's so good.
Oh
And
boy.
actually, I mean,
Um,
Simon Pegg and Tom Cruise are very close friends in real life, and so for them, this is quite a good role, I think, because they have that kind of relationship, don't they, in real life, and it's like the banter. It's good. Yeah, it's a good scene.
um, Simon. Speaking of script contributions, because they were writing this on the fly. Um, they had contributions from all over. The writer of the previous film, obviously Tom Cruise himself contributed to the story. Simon Pegg contributed. J.J. Abrams with Bad Robot was still co-producing the movie, so J.J. Abrams would stop in because he was obviously nearby filming and putting the
Mm.
finishing touches to, guys.
Star Trek, Force Awakens.
No, The Force
Force
Awakens,
Awakens, yeah, Force
which
Awakens.
added an extra layer of pressure on the production of Rogue Nation because they decided to move the opening of this film up by about 5 months to avoid clashing and going up against the new Star Wars movie,
wasn't
which
that
was
nice?
probably quite a good move.
Mm.
But it did put a lot of pressure. I mean, they were in editing up to 2 days before release of this film, which is crazy when you think about it. Ethan realizes the drive contains the names and operations of every syndicate operative. However, the data is encrypted with a biometric lock tied to the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, played by the brilliant Tom
Tom
Hollander,
Hollander.
not
Yeah.
Tom Holland. The only way to access the information is to trick the Prime Minister into unlocking it. In a classic, John would have loved this, Mission Impossible setup, the team devises a plan to infiltrate a high security meeting posing as members of British intelligence. With masks, deception, and technical wizardry, they extract the key codes. Atlee is revealed to be a complete fraud, an MI6 agent who attempted to destroy the syndicate file years earlier but was overruled. He then stole the file instead and used it to build his rogue network, which has now all gone to shit and backfired. I really, really love this. It was fun. It threw back to a load of what I could only assume was a load of kind of classic Mission Impossible
Mm.
stuff, which was really nice. That it was filled with humour as well. Tom Hollander was brilliant, and he played it
It was
right
very
on the
good.
line for
Yeah,
me.
it did.
Yeah, because it could have really spoilt it,
It could
but
become a bit of a
I just
pastiche, couldn't it, really? But
exactly, yeah.
yeah.
Again, I want to go to Alex. What did you think? Did you
Yeah,
have
loved
fun
it.
with this?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it was just it's just hard to fault any part of it really. That's the thing. I was just there here for the ride, and yeah, no, there's so little to say. I mean, I was giggling over quite a lot of it, to be fair. I think partly because we had Alec Baldwin doing his bit as well.
Did you find in this scene, Alex, with the Prime Minister and the
Yeah,
fake Atlee, did you find yourself, because I did, because I couldn't remember this scene, I did find myself wondering which of the characters, Atlee or the Prime Minister, was actually Tom Cruise in a mask. I couldn't remember which way around it was,
yeah.
because it could have gone either
Well,
way, couldn't it?
yeah. See, I was expecting Hanley to have a mask because I was expecting him not to have arrived, and I was just like, that would be awesome. But then actually, I think it was better the way
It was
worked
so,
out.
but it was so cool the way they laid this up to reveal the villain, but also to prove to Huntley that the Rogue Nation, the Syndicate, sorry, was a real thing. And you
Yeah,
could see him, his crisis of faith playing across his face in that scene, and
yeah.
realizing, ah, Ethan was right, and I was wrong, and that's when the plot's changed with how he supports the IMF. I loved that scene; it was so clever.
And then
Yeah.
how they leave it as well, like basically, okay, you've just sort of saved the Prime Minister. There you go. You can have that.
Yeah, yeah,
See you later. Bye. It's just like that was awesome. So I did like
yeah. A
it
nice
was
use of
it
truth
was a great
darts.
one.
I'd
Yeah,
love one. I'd love those truth darts in real life. Just take around with me, Try out
yeah,
a few people I think are
Yeah.
lying. Be awesome.
Yeah. The final confrontation sees Hunt flipping the script. He memorizes the data, destroys the physical copy, and tells Lane the information lives only in his head, making Hunt Lane's only path to accessing it. In a tense standoff, Hunt leads Lane into a trap around Throgmorton Avenue in the City of London, behind a Bank of
Was that
England, I
Temple?
might add.
Was it near Temple
No,
as well,
it
though?
was
Was it
no,
not?
it was so
I thought it
Temple was
was.
where Ilsa and Ethan are initially being chased and then turn
Yeah,
it around
in the fog.
on their
Yeah,
would-be captors in the fog. But then it
yeah.
moves when he leads Lane into the trap. That's actually that building now is BlackRock's building.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it's basically it's Throgmorton Street, just by the Bank of England.
Oh, okay, I know what it
In
is.
2009, I left the company I was working for and went to work with and found a boutique tailors in that very little alleyway. So where you saw them, if you watch the film again, you'll see like a little arch and like a railed metal kind of gate. That leads on to Throgmorton Avenue, but in that little side street is where I used to park my little 50cc Vespa, and we used to have our smoke
Nice.
breaks as well when we were plotting on how we were going to take over the
The
world. So
the stuff around Temple, though, leads up to a very nice pub. I used to get drunk in quite often as well. It was nice,
Yeah,
that scene.
I
It
got.
yeah,
took both Bobby and I down memory lane. It was lovely.
Yeah,
Nice to
yeah.
see it.
I
So
recognised it as well.
Yeah.
It was just. I mean, I think that's true of
It's very London, isn't it? It's
any
very, very
London.
London, that scene as
Yeah,
well,
it was
for the
very
viewers.
much. Yeah, if you've worked in London as much as we all have, and you know
Yeah.
London as well, then you would find a lot of the spots vaguely familiar. You know, or you would know exactly where it is, and then you'd be like, oh, I know that. We'll so like the thing that wasn't in the heart of London, but the thing I could spot was later on in the train station. So we'll come on to that.
yeah.
Oh, that wasn't a train station. That was Excel, wasn't it?
It was Excel. That was my
Yeah, I
point.
recognised it. I recognised it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was exactly because I went to bet a few weeks ago, and
Yeah.
I was just like, I know that layout.
That
That's
concourse.
that's
Yeah.
the halls.
Yeah.
There's a coffee shop just there, and you've just oh okay, and you've just stuck an underground sign out, you know, like rather randomly. Okay. Anyway,
It's funny, isn't it? Like your knowledge of London as a local as well, because although I
Mm.
didn't know that it was Excel, thanks guys. Although I do now, it makes sense because now I recognise the sort of
the
metal
car
things that
park.
come sort of
Yeah.
diagonally off
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
ceiling.
Yeah.
But I did run through every single major train station in London because Carolina was like, is that Waterloo? Is that Liverpool Street?" And I was like, "No, it's not Liverpool Street. It's not Waterloo. It's not
Not
Paddington. It's
Jubilee
not
line.
King's Cross. It's not."
Not Jubilee.
It
Yeah.
I was
looked
Because
like
literally
what
Jubilee
just
they
line was used in Star Wars, wasn't it?
yeah.
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 It looks like
Um,
what they tried to do was to get they tried to capture the Liverpool Street trains,
Yeah.
and they tried to put that into
I think
Excel.
they added a few elements in there. It was a bit of
Yeah,
a composite image, but yeah, it's
and
recognisable.
then of course the car park is completely Excel. If you know
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Excel and you've parked in Excel, then you'll know that. So I was like, yeah, that is totally like it's the nicest National Rail car park you've ever seen. There is
yeah.
never one like that is so well lit
Yeah.
and well clean as that. So anyway, carry on.
Let's get back to it. Hunt leads Lane into a trap. Ilsa, Benji, Brant spring into action
Oh,
along
that
with
scene.
Luther, and Lane is gassed and captured.
I
How
love that
satisfying!
scene.
How satisfying was that, John?
Yeah. I loved it because I had completely forgotten about it as well. And I thought, oh, Ethan's doomed. It was so sweet when they dropped all the glass pane, well, the bulletproof glass panes. Yeah, and it's a lovely callback and homage to the scene in the record shop as well, isn't it? With the gas and him bashing. Oh, it's so good. Again, goosebumps,
Yeah.
just remembering it.
Yeah.
And also, I think when you see the film again, Alex, what you'll notice is when he follows Ethan into the building and then Ethan drops down into the hole, and then he sort of, Lane looks very suspiciously, sort of sizes it up and then decides to go after him. You actually see the edge of the glass of the
Yeah.
box that they've built
Yeah, yeah.
Indeed.
around that hole.
And above him
in the
as
building
well.
site. It's really
Before
cool.
they slide it across. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
cool.
The syndicate is dismantled, and Hunley, impressed by the results and persuaded by Brandt and the success of the mission, recants his opposition and recommends reinstating the IMF. In the final scene, Hunley is appointed the new IMF secretary, as Brandt says. Welcome to the IMF. Roll credits. What
Cracker.
a
Nice.
cracker of a movie. Absolutely right, John. Special mention to Ving Rhames returning as Luther Stickle. Again, bringing that sort of familiar comfort to the series as well. He had a bit more to do in this one as well, which was great. But yeah, really, really loved to see him. Simon Pegg, absolutely, but everyone was brilliant in this. What a cast!
Yeah, it was great.
So
do gadgets and running.
Let's do some running, John, because there's no sexy time to talk about.
No.
So I think we can skip the cruise schmooze.
Cruise schmooze. I think we might have to put the cruise schmooze to bed for a while, figuratively, because I think the way we're going for... I don't want to spoil it for Alex, but I think the focus is much less on that in these films coming up. So, running. So, the funny run. Now, this film's going to score well with the funny run because there are 5 sequences of him running. There's the running along and jumping onto the wing of a plane in the intro sequence. There's him running topless through the brick corridor after escaping the torture scene, the torture cell, and they're shooting him from behind to the gate. Again, it's a lot of these scenes, they like to film them just below his profile or side profile. You'll notice, you look at a lot of them, he's either doing and this is for the video viewers, running, very much side view or right underneath his jaw. It's really interesting watching him again. He's running along the roof of the opera in Vienna with Ilsa. I don't know if that really counts, but I'm going to count it anyway to give this amazing film a higher score. And I loved it when they jumped down the flagpole and landed on the ground, and then a second or two later on, the flagpole dropped behind them, and they both look a bit sort of, oops, that was a close one. When Benji gets kidnapped at the station, they are both running after the black van in the underground car park, and that's another example of him running. And then obviously running through the streets of London in that last sequence before Solomon Kane falls into the box. So that's 5 funny runs. I think there are a few more that weren't the funny run, and I've discounted them because I know it irks you, Bobby, if I count them as runs when they're not. But I was impressed with the number of funny runs. There were less in the last film. Looking at my score sheet now, only 3 in Mission Impossible 4. So it's a good run count. I have given a 5 in the first column of our Mission Impossible score sheet. Gadgets.
Yeah, you're gonna have to explain that to me at some point, because when I was editing Mission Impossible 3, I got confused. But anyway, that's the conversation for another time.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that the running bit done?
That is. You love it. Every time it's the thing you most look forward to, Bobby.
Okay, cool, because it means we can then do this. It's time for Alex. Get on with it.
Yeah, Bobby's thinking about the running
Keep it
time.
Sharp and snappy, Alex, please.
Much like our
The
intro.
film.
That could be a problem.
Okay,
'cause there's quite a lot
no filler, all killer. Let's go.
Yeah.
Gadgets. Do it.
So
do it.
this is probably the most corporate one that I've seen so far.
Microsoft.
I'm very
BMW.
Very BMW. Yeah. So they're literally the most corporate one I've ever seen. Like, anyway, but we'll carry on. So there was obviously the Russian satellite in Belarus that they had to hack. With the tablet interface, which introduces the Microsoft Surface, and it was one of the early ones because it actually has the Microsoft logo, whereas they don't in the later one. Fast forward to London, we had the palm scanner on the got the Microsoft Surface out there. You're a Office 365 school, aren't you? Yeah, nodding.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Sorry, what?
So that makes.
Sorry, Bobby
sense.
just fell asleep there, Alex. You missed that. Sorry.
It's fine. It's all right. I'll just keep my TTS,
Soldier on.
No. What was the question?
Thing. I said that they were an Office 365 school. That was all.
My school is.
Oh, Office 365. Oh, okay, yeah.
So anyway, because
we use Office 365.
Yeah. Well,
Welcome.
we can move on with that. That's
It's the
not
most
that
boring
interesting,
sequence
though.
of the podcast, folks.
Yeah. Let me carry on, please.
Yeah,
Anyway,
carry on.
so we
Go back
had
to
the
gadgets.
PowerPoint,
the
Excel.
palm scanner on the vinyl in London Records,
Yep.
Tower Records, with the holo display, which was very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, now I want to just have a little mention of the London phone box that makes a repeat visit. It is the old BT style red phone boxes. The one in particular is the Case 6, if anyone's keeping track. But that's actually the most, pretty much the classic one. So I really think that's worth it. Anyway, let's carry on. So go to Cuba. We had head cams on the CIA. There was nothing really surprising about the CIA stuff, so I didn't really pay much attention to it, to be honest. Except that everyone seems to have Nokias, which is interesting. So, and they actually, as we move later on, we find out that the Lumia 930s that they use running Windows Phone, I believe, because they had the tile display. So
I believe Microsoft were a sponsor of the film. That's why.
Yeah. I mean, if
You've
they
got the
weren't,
Xbox and Halo earlier on as well. Yeah.
they really missed a trick, didn't they?
Yeah.
No, they must have spent a fortune on it. So they did well. And then we then go back to Benji, who's gaming on his Xbox One and his sick Dell 3 monitor setup, which I thought was an interesting mix. Actually, Dell's coming later on as well. He was playing Xbox One Halo 5 Self-Destruct Edition, which I thought was quite an interesting little thing there.
Too much detail.
So the other thing that really annoys me, it'll be no surprise that this is really...
I was going to change my background to like a warm yellow, John, but then I've decided to keep it all Darth Vader-ish.
Moodery. This is your...
Well,
your...
Barbie Darth Vader, because it's a bit pink.
Barbie Vader.
So the thing that really
that
bugs
stupid
me...
homophobe that keeps popping up on the YouTube channel, attacking me, we'll got to give him something for his sad little life.
Oh dear.
Wanker.
Let's move on. But the thing that frustrates me, and this bugs me and no one else, is the Dell servers that they put in that lovely rack behind him that look really cool would never be there, because servers are bloody noisy. They have huge amounts of fans and cooling around them, and you put them in a server room, nowhere near like a desk with people working, because it would be really deafening. So it was there for the aesthetics, and it bugged me. Anyway, I'm going to move on.
Yeah, please.
We had in Vienna, we had some smart glasses with like iris identity bits for Benji. That was quite good. The Lumia is used to do quite a lot of things. I love the fact that they've just stopped having actual lockpicks, and now they just have a screensaver that shows lockpicking, and they use that in lots of places as a kind of just nod to, hey, this is cool, but don't think about it too hard. So I thought that was quite funny. In the theatre, well, not in the theatre, but while Benji was hacking behind the scenes in his box, he had the theatre program, which was an e-paper laptop, which was very.
I've never seen e-paper refresh that quickly, by the way.
No, it does not.
No.
But I was impressed to see it, and a
That's
touch
pretty cool.
screen as well. Don't just stop there. Oh no, make it a touch screen. Sure. Anyway, I quite liked showing how much of a geek I am. The wide beam boat with the IMF sort of safe area that Hunt had created. So
The
that
underground
was quite good in
thing.
the
The
harbour.
underground canal.
Well, it was in
Did
the
you
harbour.
mention the bass flute gun in the opera sequence?
Haven't got. Oh no, I didn't. But that's a good one.
You're fired.
There's quite a few here. I'm going to miss a few.
When after doing like however many Bond films, right, where you always had to talk about the flipping guns and stuff, the weapons. He goes and misses the bass flute gun.
Yeah.
It's not on the list for gadgets. That's the thing. So it doesn't really. It comes. Sometimes it comes up if it's cool. To be fair, those were quite cool. In that, how do you get past security? Well, you're a musician and you just have a massive instrument. It's fair enough.
That's the name of your sex tape. My
Thank
sex
you
tape.
very
There we go.
Everyone should drink. Yeah, I'll set that one up for you. So in that IMF style safe boat that they were in, there was just a lot of screens. They were all TCL TVs as well, which was quite, because they obviously paid money for this, so that was interesting. We had the USB skiff, which was a lipstick, which was an interesting touch. Then we go off to Morocco, and in Morocco we have the wetsuit, glove, stopwatch, and blood oxygen monitor. It kind of does both, so I thought that was particularly cool. Then when we break into the power thing, we have the glass breaker and the CCTV feed thing that he shoots there. Then, of course, like you said, there's the pass and combination locks. The combination locks just look like a little ring that he puts on that does it for him, which was quite. It was quite neat. And then there's the gait analysis. Now, I don't know if any of you have actually done gait analysis as runners.
The Japanese invention, isn't it? Or Chinese invention?
My wife has.
Yeah. So normally when you do gait analysis in runner's need or somewhere like that, and they film you on a treadmill, and they just see how your feet land. So if you're a runner, then you'll know gait analysis. So the fact that they're doing that without like any cameras behind or in front of it was quite interesting.
They're using it in they're using gait analysis in Chinese shops, aren't they, to spot people who have an intention to steal things. It's just quite clever.
Clever. But anyway, I thought it was interesting, so I thought I'd mention it. Facial recognition from a sketch was no problem for our Luther. He said that was fine, so that's all good. There's more TCL monitors and the palm print on the cars, the BMWs.
That's pretty cool.
M3s. So that's very cool. More facial recognition. It just seems to have it running in the background, which I thought was a bit lazy. But, I guess he doesn't pay the computer bill, so it's fine. Then, of course, we have the M3, which is pretty sweet. Let's talk about so you've got the fingerprints and the retinal scan and the voice phrase, and we didn't seem to have any problem with all of those, getting those from the PM, which was quite good.
He had a thing in his car, didn't he, which could block jam signals at the gate as well. The main BMW control knob that you have.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. The little switch. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was good. That was in the iDrive bit at the bottom, wasn't it? As part of the part of the M3.
Oh, you've been watching Bobby's videos. There you go.
Yeah. So that was good. And then
along with thousands of other people.
Me.
Syndicate. So the Syndicate used Dell laptops. I think that tells you all you need to know.
Yeah.
They're evil.
That's good. And then I've got here an overly elaborate explosive vest with an incredibly high resolution display, which seems a bit over the top when you're going to blow it up. Could have just gone with a cheap thing from AliExpress, but never mind. And then I've just got here, living in a glass box. I think that was a pun, but
very good.
Nothing to do.
I don't think you mentioned the motorbikes. The Motorrad's S1000RRs, BMW again.
No, they were pretty cool. Anything
they were
else?
Very cool.
Yeah, there's the contact lens, the camera.
The eye contact, the contacts. Yeah, smart contacts.
Yeah.
They were good. They were actually, and they just had an earpiece in. That wasn't very exciting. There was a lot. There was a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah, people using
no
knives
apples.
and forks and no apples, because apples are only used by good people. Yeah, good. Well done. Let's just talk about. I'm looking at the clock here, and we're doing really, really well. So, but I do want to fit some actual tailoring stuff in. I don't know what we can call this segment. Maybe you guys can have a think about it. Come back.
Tailoring Tom.
Theme tune.
There you go. Tailoring
Tom.
Keeps the initials.
That's a bit shit, but it'll do for now. Costume designer Joanna Johnston, who had previously worked with Steven Spielberg on Catch Me If You Can and Saving Private Ryan. She was brought in to bring some refinement and European elegance to Rogue Nation. So she came at an approach of wanting to hark back to cinematic glamour with some of the references to old Hitchcock films and obviously looking at Ilsa's outfits, but also sort of balance the whole espionage and the utility aspect of the outfits as well, because you've got to not only look good, but you've got to be able to do stuff in them and beat people up and run and all that sort of thing. So John quite rightly pointed out Ethan Hunt's suit in the opening sequence
Oh,
is a direct callback to Cary Grant's, or is
yeah,
it Cary Grant in North by
yeah,
Northwest?
yeah,
I remember seeing that film when I was very, very young,
yeah.
and
I
I
did.
and I really loved it.
Yeah.
Really loved that movie. But yeah, direct callback to that. In the Vienna State Opera scene, Ethan wears a black single-breasted suit with peak lapels,
He looks good in that suit.
which very similar to what Daniel Craig wears, the Brioni in Casino Royale. He starts off wearing a tie with it, but then soon loses the tie and he's just got an open collar, ready for action, obviously.
Well,
In the
also,
motorcycle sequence,
Bobby, that tie taking off bit, now that you talk about it, I think that was a good sequence because he took it off as he's just about to go up into the gantry and fight the giant who's got the
oh
sax
yeah, he
gun.
was going to strangle that bastard.
Well, he took it off for two reasons. Maybe to use it as a strangler, but also, much like my son's school, they all have clip-on ties. If he was wearing it, he could get strangled too. So I think he was being very
Yeah.
practical, much like the shoes coming off later on. I thought that's really clever. Nice little
hmm
touch.
Motorcycle chase wears a leather jacket, deep grey jeans, and
Loved his
boots.
shirt on that one as well. That cool shirt he was wearing.
Yeah, and oh, I love that shirt. Carolina
It
thought
got
it looked
proper
stupid,
mashed
but
up on the
anyway,
ground, but it's a lovely shirt.
I thought it was very, very cool.
It
You
was.
know, looks every bit the modern day action hero.
Yeah.
But the clothes weren't hanging off him. Everything was tailored and fit properly.
Mm.
In the final sequences, we see him in dark suits, unflashy but still very, very sharp. These suits suggest a man who moves through the world with quiet confidence and control. My wife refers to it as understated wow factor. A tailoring note, his jackets are all slightly shorter than traditional cuts, which allows for better movement and gives a more modern European silhouette as opposed to an American baggy one. Soft shoulders, moderate width lapels. Some people say it's very Tom Ford Brioni, but I'd say it's kind of nods to that sort of tailoring, but is a bit more refined. Because when you go to, so I turned around to Carolina and I said, his outfits in this film, he looks better in this than Daniel Craig did in any of his Bond films, with the exception of maybe Casino Royale. Hands
I don't know.
down. And
There's this
even
suit
when you,
in the desert at Quantum of
even,
Solace was good. That linen suit that
Yeah.
Craig wore.
yeah, I know, but that was one outfit you're talking about.
Yeah, true.
There was one outfit. There wasn't a
Mhm.
bad outfit in this. The only one wearing questionable outfits was Benji, but his
Yeah.
character, that was
That's his
appropriate
frame.
for that
That's his
because he's
frame, though, isn't it, really?
exactly.
Yeah.
But Jeremy Renner looked really good. Alec
Mm.
Baldwin looked fantastic in his suits as well. Like the costuming in this was just on point. It was so
Bobby,
good. And
can I just point out my favourite suit in this that he wears?
mhm.
There's a sequence when they arrive in Casablanca at the house where Ilsa's in the pool, and Ethan's wearing this amazing dark blue
He's
suit
wearing
with a
the blue
burgundy
suit with the
shirt.
burgundy
Yeah.
shirt.
And
Yeah.
then, but then Benji's wearing that sort of salmon linen, and they just look so good going into that suit.
hmm
Oh, that's the one. That's my favourite suit from the film. I loved it.
I've actually made a note of that to create
Yeah,
because I need to do some new summer outfits for myself, and I'm going to do that burgundy blue combination.
yeah, look really good.
I think I look really good in that. Ilsa, special mention for her Casablanca outfits. We've already talked
Mm.
about her opera dress. But she wears light trench coats, cream blouses, greys, taupes. The palette in Morocco basically is a lot softer than we saw it previously in
It's a
Austria.
character change,
But
isn't
her
it?
line, yeah, but all of
Yeah.
her lines stay sharp. Soft tailoring keeps it elegant while visually reminding us that she's still undercover and she still walking the path between different worlds. So there we go. The other thing, just a tailoring note, clothes not overly styled. Even in her most feminine looks, there's restraint. Lines are clean, materials are luxurious, but they're breathable. This is the spy wardrobe perfected for the female. Visually striking, completely mobile, always strategic. So I've looked, William Brandt, Jeremy Renner's character, always dresses like a man who's constantly ready to go to a Senate hearing. Three-piece suits, heavy pinstripe, classic ties. He's the most traditionally dressed of the crew. Colour palette, navy, charcoal, dark ties. Colours suggest authority, but not too flashy. Very clean, conservative. Helps to visually differentiate him from Ethan and the more European-styled
He wasn't
Ilsa.
meant to stand out in these Senate hearings. He's meant to be. It's almost a subservient style, don't you think? Without giving away too much.
Nothing he wore was made for chasing villains on motorbikes, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Alex, the bit in the Range Rover or whatever it is that Luther and he are driving when they're trying to do the three-point turn to turn around, he's like, you had to get the Jeep, didn't you? There's gonna be a motorcycle chase. You had to get you wanted the big car.
Yeah. No, that was good. I like that a lot. That was fun.
Yeah, it was. So let's wrap this up now.
Ratings.
Yes, exactly. What was the box office take and budget, Alex?
Yeah, so it's quite a lot here. So the total was, hang on a minute. Where are we?
This is just pulling up the figures for you, folks.
You know
I think it was around 635 million.
Yeah,
worldwide.
Sorry, I was trying to do some quick maths and I was failing. Worldwide total of 682 million, 195 million in the US, 487 million in other countries. So now the thing is, that sounds pretty good, but it didn't exceed Ghost Protocol's final gross. So it became second highest grossing Mission Impossible, third biggest film for Cruise. Now, in 2015, where do you think that it sat in terms of grossing film? So I'll give you three options. So it's either third, sixth, or eighth.
I think it was probably 8th.
6th.
Okay, Bobby was right.
12th.
Oh,
Sorry,
wow.
John, it was 6th. Sorry, so it's 8th.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was a really good year for films.
Yeah.
So, the top
Well,
one
Force
in
Awakens would have been number one.
Yeah, that was number one. Can you name any more?
Jurassic World came out that year.
Yeah,
So
that
that
was
has to be
2.
pretty up there because those
Was
films
Rogue One
have
around
done
that time as
iconic
well?
shit.
Rogue One was not.
No.
Force Awakens had just come out, so
Yeah.
I think it's the year before.
Close.
I know Fast and Furious 7 came out that year because
It
it was
did.
the one I cried at the end because of the whole Paul Walker tribute.
That was third.
When he
yeah.
in the white Supra.
There's one we should know.
Was there Mad
That
Max that year as
City Age of Ultron. Was that
Age of
2015?
Ultron was in. Yeah, that was fourth. No, it
well?
wasn't.
Hunger Games? Was there a Hunger Games film
Jump.
that year?
There was a Hunger Games film,
Yeah.
Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2. The one that we missed was 6 was actually Spectre.
Oh yeah,
So
sorry,
Spectre was
2015.
880 million. It was 2015, so
Oh yeah.
that's it. And we were also
Mad Max
beaten
Fury
by...
Road is there as well. Definitely.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's not on the top 10, but it must be in the list. Yeah, so the other ones were Minions, which
Yeah.
1.1 billion.
Inside Out was that year as well, wasn't it?
Inside Out, was 7th at 850. And then finally, to top off at 10th, we have The Martian.
Yep.
Oh, that's a good film.
So it was an incredibly strong year.
Strong year for films.
And it just surprises me that it was actually just 8th. That for me. It also got really good reviews. So it's just there's very little to fault this. 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, average rating of 7.5 out of 10, and basically had really positive reviews. So it got an A- on Cinema Score. So yeah, honestly, like it's a very good film. Is the answer
Yeah.
to that?
What's your score out of
So,
10, Alex?
what's your score, Alex?
I'm going to give it 9.5. I would have actually, yeah, no, I will would I'll give it 9.5.
Where did it lose to point
I'm
5?
I'm hoping that there's a better one coming, and if
You're being
not, then
cautious, are you?
I've left that point 0.5 wiggle room. If not, I might come back and make it a 10. But there's so little to fault this film. Yeah, I'm just being cautious. That's all. Otherwise, I'm going to
John?
ruin the rating scale. So
Mine's a 10 for
Yeah.
this one. Mine's a
it's
10.
10, is it? Nice.
Bobby, how about you? 10
Mine's
too.
a 9.5 as well.
Oh,
9.5.
9.5.
It's
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
9.5 at the back. I think to give any film a perfect 10 is quite difficult, because there's always little things that can be improved, and there were a couple little plot things that did make me think, well, how did
Mm.
they, like the walking, Benji doing the whole
Yeah.
gate sequence and things,
Yeah.
where did they get the fingerprint stuff from and all the rest of it? Had they already captured the guy? We don't know.
I think
But
that was revealed
but
by
nine
Kane
point
later on, that he let them have that so he could get them into the thing. So it was
yeah,
kind of explained
but
later on.
9.5 for me, it was freaking brilliant. It was just
Mm.
amazing. It was entertaining from start to finish. It had everything. It had great
Yeah.
characterization, a brilliant story. It was complex without being too confusing. The action sequences were brilliant. The cinematography was amazing. The music was fantastic because the guy that was brought in to do it, Kramer, what's his name? James Kramer, I think. Oh God, what's his name? Where's my notes? But
Joe Kramer.
Joe Kramer. So he was initially experimenting with using synthesizers, and
Mm.
then he just decided, do you know what? No, I'm only gonna use what Lalo Schifrin had at his disposal back in 1960, whatever. And so there
Hmm.
were no digital instruments in his score whatsoever, and it's all the better for it. It's just fantastic. The callbacks, the Nessun Dorma, and how he kind of uses that as Ethan and Ilsa's theme
Ilsa's theme, yeah.
after. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I think is just the music in this is brilliant. Do you know what? I'm going to download the soundtrack and I'm going to listen to it tomorrow. It's
Do
my
you know
first day
what,
back to
Bobby?
work after
Do
Easter.
you know what? Do you know what? I could quite happily sit down and rewatch this film now. I watched it last night.
Yeah, 100%.
Straight away. Yeah.
100%. But that's why I said to Carolina. So we were listening to a bit of the soundtrack earlier, and I just turned around to Carolina and I said, "This is going to be controversial, but I can't. I don't think I can think of a single Bond film that I would say is better than
Mm.
this." Now, don't get me wrong, Bond is different. It lives in a very very special place in our cinematic fanboy hearts, but just being purely objective, I don't think there's a Bond film that's better than this. And yet, this owes a great debt to those
Yeah,
movies
yeah,
that came before
yeah.
it. So there we go.
Brilliant. Well, that gives us
Anyone
a
who's
total
still
score
listening,
of 34
come at me in
points.
the comments. Come at
Bobby,
me.
this is the highest rated film so far.
Okay,
Um,
it deserves to be.
yeah, yeah. We'll see how it goes for the rest of them. It's got, the
Yeah,
rating helped with the number of running scenes, obviously, as well. But it's, even without that, would be the highest. So well done to Mission Impossible 5 and all the crew.
Yeah.
definitely. Rogue Nation, not just a great spy movie. It kickstarted the quote unquote Mission Impossible universe. I know Chris McQuarrie would probably hate to hear that, but it is the start of the Mission Impossible universe.
Yeah.
It takes everything that the franchise had been experimenting with in the first four movies: teamwork, continuity, tone, character development, and it absolutely locks it into place. This is the film where Mission Impossible becomes more than just a franchise of daring stunts and masks. It becomes the in my opinion, greatest action film series of all time. From this film through to
Don't spoil it too
Dead
much.
Reckoning.
Don't spoil it too much.
Without spoiling anything, Alex, shut your ears. Sorry.
Alex, you're in for a treat, mate.
Alex, this is you know when you're a kid and there's that roller coaster that turns out to be really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Right, you know when you sit down and the guy comes and puts the safety bar in front of you and you're like, you're not getting out of this now, you're just in for this ride.
Yep.
Consider Rogue Nation your safety bar. That's it. You're in for the ride now, dude. You're not getting off this train. That's it for our deep dive into Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. We hope you enjoyed this breakdown as much as Tom Cruise enjoyed all of his death-defying stunts multiple times. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share Tailoring Talk Magazine wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want even more, if you want to see me sticking my fingers up at the guys and God knows what else, check out the YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram. If you're already watching this on YouTube, you can also check out the audio version wherever you like to get your podcast. And please do support the show by leaving your ratings, reviews, joining in the comments. You know that we love interacting with you all. Next time, we're literally taking things even higher as we dive into Mission Impossible Fallout. See you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye. What did you say, John, when you interrupted my little outro?
Say bye.
No, before that.
Can't remember. I was about to say
I've got you
moustache.
recorded, and I can separate your audio, so I will find out. So either spit it out, or...
I don't know. Mate, right now, you can probably see I'm squirming quite a lot. I'm absolutely desperate to go and visit the little boy's room.
Oh, to the loo. Okay, yes.
Maybe I'll just say I need a shit. I don't know.
The guy that does the Tom Cruise running bits has now got the runs.
I've got to run like really fast. So
okay, go on, do it with your crazy arms to the toilet. Off you go.
Right, bye.
Bye.